Good morning, good morning, good morning. Have a pretty day out today. Luna is and I had an enjoyable walk. She got a little scared of the kitty cats. They made her jump, but that's because she's such a small little doggy. Hope you join me in a cup of coffee or tea or water or uh... So today I was going to talk about um, thoughts about empathy and systems when it comes to natural selection and communities get uh, advance over time. There's a lot of hard mathematics for people that are what you call macro, which is large scale economics people, people that are supposed to predict what large groups will do. And the easiest thing for them to do is to say you are always selfish. As long as you're selfish, this is what will happen. And there's a lot of stuff they've done over the years that's worked out pretty well because they do that. And sometimes it doesn't do that. And they scratch their head and say, I don't know why people did that. There's this study I read about 4 or 5 years ago about a gentleman who would pay people to give up their seat on the subway. He was quite impressed with how much it took to get somebody to give up their seat because he was not unable body. He was a sturdy young man. He just wanted the seat and he would offer cash. And they said, no, no. Some people said, I don't care how much you offer me. I'm not giving up my seat to you. But they would give it up to somebody that was elderly or had some physical health issues without any compensation. Kind of messes with the mind of the selfish analysis that we're supposed to do on a lot of things. So if we developed over time and we were supposed to be selfish, why did we develop these characteristics? Why is it still pretty predominant in our system? And it's kind of an interesting question. It's one that's actually being wrestled with even now. Um, there's a lot of people who can't quite put it together. Every time they think they know it, it doesn't quite work out. Darwin had a famous theory saying that groups may be, developed over time. But he also said his analysis should apply to the animal kingdom. But then, if you look at groups, it doesn't really apply to most animal kingdoms. They don't work that way. They're more derived by their groups by selfishness. So it's kind of curious. It's empathy and systems kind of fray a little bit when it comes to stuff like this. Empathy is usually something that is not good for the group. It's good for the marginalized and the smaller group people. Systems are usually the ones that hurt those because systems are usually applied to the majority. As I said before, Empathy is usually a good indicator when the system needs to be tweaked. Right now, we're having a lot of discussions about whether or not a lot of the laws and rules that we have right now really support the majority, and they are damaging to the people that are not part of the majority, people that are uh, been historically looked down on or marginalized. There's a lot to work out as to how things can be improved and tweaked. But there's also the other side that we don't want to damage the majority, uh, at least not too much. So it's a tough thing. Yep, that was Luna bouncing the ball off the camera. So you have the years and years of tens of thousands of years that we've been growing as humans on the planet. And we have a deep empathy for the other humans, not even just family members, people that we just meet, people that we see on video cameras. We have a lot of empathy for them. It's interesting how that developed. Hardest part is to see if it's getting better or worse. When my parents were growing up, they had they lived through some pretty tough times. My mother said that when she was little, she remembered seeing a mortician come to a house that was near where she was at, and they pulled the family out of the building, out of the home. They had died from plague. There was a lot of that just before she was born in 1920. Then her father, luckily, she said the Great Depression wasn't too rough on her. It was hard, not saying it wasn't, but he was a U.S. Postal Service employee. So he had a job through the whole thing. So they always had a little bit of money coming in. And so they always had food on the table. Sometimes it didn't have meat, sometimes it was just potatoes, but they always had some food on the table to get them through everything. My dad, on the other hand, grew up on a farm, and his dad had passed away, but his dad was pretty smart. He had a good grandmom too, so I'm not saying it was all her dad, but he said that one of the things that he agreed to, and she backed him up, was they wanted to keep their debts as low as possible. So they had a farm paid for. They had equipment, farm equipment paid for. So they owed nothing to the banks. So when the Depression hit, the biggest problem for the farms wasn't that they couldn't produce food, because they could produce food. It's just that nobody could buy it. There was no flow of capital. So you had people starving in the cities, and farms with tons of food, but no way to get it to those people because there was no money to move it. So my dad said he would go out and hunt, get meat for the dinner table, and they had plenty of food because of the farm. They had more than they needed, and they did something that was a little unpopular with their neighbors. Every Sunday, my dad would hitch up the uh, big hay wagon, and he would go down through St. Louis, Missouri, pick people up, bring them back to the farm, and they would serve them food, and they would tell them, "Eat all you want. If you want seconds, thirds, fourths, don't concern yourself. We will feed you as much as you can eat." And then at the end of the day, they get back on the wagon and they take them back to St. Louis. Their neighbors didn't like that because they said, "How can you expect people to pay when you're giving it away for free?" So their neighbors were throwing good food into the rivers because they didn't want to just give it away for free. Why did my parents do that and some people did not? Is that something that we inherit? Is that something we develop? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if anybody knows right now. Uh, I've listened to some very smart people that have thought about it deeply. They said it's developed with systems. You can develop empathy. So to them, it's very important that we develop empathy in our systems. Other people think that systems should be there to educate you on things that are good for you to be part of the system. Who is right? Who is wrong? I really don't know. I do know that I appreciate that story from my dad. I think that's wonderful that he was at a his family was at that time and place could do something for others. And I feel sorry for my mom having to struggle through, but I also appreciate her forbearance to muddle through. And she went on to be the most empathetic of the two of them. My dad was a softie. He wouldn't say so because he was supposed to be hard. But my mom was this nurse that loved and cared about so many people. I have to tell you guys a story about her and her second career after the VA hospital. Quite entertaining. A lot of empathy in that lady. So, where'd your empathy come from? Did you get it from your parents? Did you get it genetically? Is all of your friends and family all empathetic? I'm just asking. No judgment. And what about people around you? You see any patterns? If you do, think about them. Think about those patterns and make things more empathetic. See if you can add those patterns to the system as we watch my dog's tail go by. You guys have a wonderful day. I love you very much. There's a drink to you. There's a drink to what you're going through, what you have to get done. I care about you. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.